What does Social Nation do, and how long have you run the business for?
So Social Nation is an influencer marketing agency. We manage people with large social media followings, probably people that you would recognize from TikTok. I've had my business for 8 years, but I've actually worked in influencer marketing for 11 years now.
What's the best advice you can give to someone who wants to start a business at school?
You've got to get a bit of experience in the working world before you just go, oh, I'm going to run a business, because there's so much to learn. I personally think you should maybe just work a little bit first.
If you were a secondary student again now, what type of business would you want to set up and why?
I think I'd like to do something with
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 7th episode of Kids Interview Entrepreneurs. My name is Richard Leighton. I'm the Entrepreneur in Residence within the Breck Centre for Entrepreneurship. That's part of the University of Liverpool Management School. We're here in UTC, the studio in the Baltic Triangle, with our Year 9 pupils. They're participating in a competitions class, which is an extracurricular activity that they all choose and select to do, where students work on different challenges. So it's great that the audience that we've got here and our interviewees are very entrepreneurial, as they are. Entrepreneur today is Kath Jones, and she's a serial entrepreneur. So she runs multiple businesses, Social Nation and Think Wine Group. And thank you to Mr. Carey, the Sector Skills Champion, for helping and supporting us run this activity that's part of the Enterprise Education in Secondary Schools programme, as well as thanks to Jay as well, a philosophy student at the University of Liverpool, who helps us produce the podcast itself. Our two interviewers today are Gracie and Saskia, and I'm going to hand it over to you now to ask our local entrepreneur the questions.
Okay. So what does Social Nation do, and how long have you run the business for?
So Social Nation is an influencer marketing agency. So we manage people with large social media followings, probably people that you would recognize from TikTok, or people you might recognize if you watch Love Island, or people you might recognize if you watch Geordie. So we've got different clients, all with high social media followings. And I've had my business for 8 years, but I've actually worked in influencer marketing for 11 years now. So it's been a long time.
Why did you decide to set up Social Nation as opposed to any other type of business?
So that was my skill set, I guess. I was working for another influencer marketing agency for about 3 or 4 years before I set up my own business. And I realised that there was things that I could do better. And if I was to set up my own agency, I'd be able to play by my rules and hire staff that had my morals. And I just think that I really wanted to pave the way for influencer marketing to be different to what I had been taught. So I set up an agency based on my skill set, because that's what I had been doing previously.
Okay. What were you like in secondary school, and were you entrepreneurial as a student?
Yeah, so I have always been entrepreneurial since I was probably, the first thing I can remember is when I was about 8, when I used to put on shows and sell tickets to the shows on the street. So I know that since I was young, I've always been selling things, and I always wanted my own business. Ever since I can remember, I always knew I wanted my own business. I just wasn't really sure what that business was going to be. In secondary school, though, I originally went to an all-girls secondary school, and I didn't like it at all. It was very heavily religious, and it was very, strict. And I just didn't work well in that environment. So I actually ended up leaving secondary school, that school, in year 7, and moving to another secondary school that was a mixed school and a bit more relaxed, chilled, and I actually really excelled in that second secondary school. So I went from being a little bit naughty in year 7 to being very good by the time I got to my next school in year 8, 9, 10.
What were your favourite subjects and like what did you like best about school?
My favourite subject by the time I was older, because you don't always do business, do you? I think business gets offered when you're about 14. When I was 14, business was without doubt, my favourite subject. I loved business and I loved English language, English literature. I loved learning, I was always interested in reading and learning how to articulate properly. I always had an interest in that. I really did not enjoy religious studies. But there was a lot of that I had to do. But that was probably my worst subject.
What could like your school or schools have done to encourage or support you and others in like entrepreneurship?
I think things like this is great. Our school did not offer anything like this. We'd never had entrepreneurs coming in. We never had people from the university visiting us or any kind of technology stuff like that. I think if they could have integrated more of exactly as you're doing here, I think this would have been really, really good back in my day. But we didn't have anything like this. So I think as much as you can get to know entrepreneurs and speak about business and, interact with actual working people, it really helps and it'll help you understand what you want to do and achieve.
Did you go to sixth form in university after studying GCSEs and did that help you with entrepreneurship?
I went to sixth form. I studied business. I studied other things, but I can't even remember. I think it was tourism and English. Yeah, so that was my A levels: English, tourism, and business. And I stayed in school in sixth form because I loved the second school that I went to. I loved it, so I wasn't ready to leave. And so I stayed on. And I think, I'd say that did help me because I studied business studies and I was very good at that. And I think my teacher was good at recognising that I was good at it. And she always did say, you're very good at this, you're very good at that. So it kind of confirms what I already knew, I was going to go into business.
What did you do before like starting Social Nation? Like, did you work for anyone else or run any other businesses? And what did you run?
Yeah, so Social Nation was my first business, so I didn't have a business prior to that. However, I had multiple jobs. My first real job, I used to glass collect when I was 15, but my first real job was when I worked for the Marriott hotels. So I worked as a receptionist for Marriott. I actually moved to America when I was 19. So I spent over a year in the US working for the Marriott hotels. I worked in all different departments as well. So I'd work in events, I'd work in sales, I'd work in basically every area of the hotel. So I got to know everywhere and I got to understand what I liked and what I didn't like. And then I went and worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car on the graduate management program. And again, I learned tons of skills from that. I ended up managing one of the branches. I was one of the only girls there and I excelled very quickly in that job. So I've had a few jobs. I would say primarily what I've always done is sales. That's what I've always been good at. And it's very helpful if you run a business, if you're good at sales. And that's probably my kind of skill set.
What's the best advice you can give to someone who wants to start a business at school?
At school? Ooh. I wasn't ready to start a business at school because I didn't have the skills yet. I personally believe that, okay, if you're starting like a little business, maybe making something and selling it, that's, that can be a little bit of a money maker on the side, but you can't just really throw yourself into a business and expect that you're going to know what you're doing. I think if you can really dip your toe into like the world of being employed young and get skill sets from jobs, then maybe by the time you're like 21 or whatever, you might be ready to launch a business. But for me, you've got to get a bit of experience in the working world before you just go, I'm going to run a business, because there's so much to learn. And if you can learn that while being paid by someone else, that's going to be much better for you. But I personally think you should maybe just work a little bit first.
Yeah. What are the plans for Social Nation in the future, and do you think that you'll set up any more businesses?
I think I probably will. set up more businesses. I've thought about it multiple times and I have to rein myself back in because I'm like, no, you've got to focus. You've already got 2 and you spread very thin and you want to stay consistent with what you're doing. So I could quite easily go off, and go, oh yeah, I want to do that. I've got this idea. And I'm quite like that as well. So I really have to rein myself in. And I think eventually I will set up more businesses. But right now I really need to focus on the 2 businesses that I currently have, because I do have another business as well. It's called Think Wine. And it's a low sugar, low calorie, vegan, organic wine brand. And that takes up a lot of time as well. So in the future, I probably will. Right now, it's a no. Plans for Social Nation are to keep growing and to represent personalities with purpose. So I don't just want to represent you just because you have followers, just because you've got a certain number of followers. I want to represent you because our morals align and you are a personality with purpose. You're not just out there going, oh, I'm gorgeous. Look at me. I want to make money. You're out there doing something good. Maybe you're representing a charity or maybe you're super creative. Basically, I want to represent you because you have a purpose, not because you just want to look gorgeous online.
But if you were a secondary student again now, what type of business would you want to set up and when?
I think I'd like to do something like with technology. I just think it's ever evolving, ever growing. If you're good at technology, wow, you can always get a job. I'm always looking, because it's not a skill that I have. I'm always looking to work with people with technical skills or know about technology, or the way the world's going now with like podcasts and social media, everything is technology. And I don't have that skill. And I think it's a massively important skill to have. So if it was me, if I was trying to make the big bucks, I'd be going into a technology-based business.
Brilliant. So I think that was really great advice at the end there. Sort of we're obviously a bit older, and when we were at school, we didn't necessarily have access to technology, but it seems to be developing really rapidly and really sort of quickly. And I'm sort of wary that, okay, I'm fairly good at the entrepreneurial side of things, especially social entrepreneurial, but actually I need to get a grasp of technology, how to use this and how to kind of create social as well as commercial impact with that. So that was really fantastic. Thanks ever so much for the questions. That was really, really brilliant. So what we're going to do now is open it up to the audience for some questions. So I'll come into the audience because we need to talk into the microphone. Hopefully I won't kill myself over these labels. Yeah. So is there anybody in the audience who's got any questions for our entrepreneur today? Oh, brilliant. We've got hands already. So here you go.
How much money did you make each year?
It's a hard question to answer. So the first year in business for Social Nation, I made about £500,000. But that was in turnover rather than profit, which is something difficult really to understand, because I would think, oh, wow, I've made £500,000. That's such a lot of money. But then by the time I paid for everything and all my costs have come out, actually maybe I've made £80,000. It's not anywhere near what it looks like. And they always say your turnover is vanity and your profit is your sanity. So it's all about what profit you make rather than your turnover. But my turnover in Social Nation was very high from the beginning. My turnover in Think Wine was very low from the beginning. Maybe something like 100 grand a year, which it might seem like a lot of money, but it's not when you've got so many costs associated, to the point where maybe I was making 100 grand, but I was spending 120 grand. So it was losing money for a few years. And it's only now that it makes money. And that it's 5 years old now. So Social Nation, from day one, I was making money from 500 grand. I'm nearly up to like $1 million in turnover now. While as with Think Wine, I have only just started making any money.
the margins on. I used to work in an off license for a number of years, and actually I really enjoyed it. But the margins on things like alcohol is very sort of low, whereas obviously the margins on a social media business,
Yeah, exactly. You've got no overheads. You just need a laptop, a phone, a person, and some relationships. Whereas with Think Wine, you've got massive overheads, warehousing, shipments, product cost. It's so different.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really interesting what you've sort of shared with us, and it's good for the pupils to think when they're starting up a business. Like you've got two really great businesses there, but actually one you can start pretty much straight away with little sort of investment.
Yeah.
But another one is going to take a lot of capital and
years,
potentially is risk and years and sort of all the rest of it. So I think the good advice is to start your entrepreneurial journey with a product or a service where there's low entry to sort of market, and then once you get good at that, then you can go into some other areas that you're kind of really interested in.
Yeah. Don't do an alcohol business. Just don't.
Next question.
How would you recommend getting your business out there? Like, for example, which was the best way to market it?
So I'll tell you, my biggest secret has been LinkedIn. Do you guys know about LinkedIn? Yeah? Are you on there? I would recommend starting on there young, because I actually didn't start on LinkedIn till I was about 30, which was late. Some people get on there when they're 17, 18. And LinkedIn has been phenomenal for me. I just post organically. I will post videos of myself talking. I will post pictures of when I get a delivery. I will post the ups and the downs. I'll talk about, when we've had a really bad time or when we've had a really good time. And I think people really get to know you as a person, and then they want to support you. And that doesn't cost a penny. That's organic. So I would say LinkedIn from a young age is key. I actually hire people from LinkedIn all the time because, some of the younger ones will message me. They're only 17, 18. And they're like, I've seen you on LinkedIn. I love what you're doing. I love what you stand for. And then they might send me a really creative application, like a video application, or they might write me a card or something. But LinkedIn has been great. Other than that, any form of social media, going on podcasts, going and speaking at events, going and networking, get yourself out there, go into a room and introduce yourself and tell people what you're doing. People want to help you. So if you ask for the help, you will get it.
It's brilliant. Next question.
Do you think you'd ever work for a business? Because I remember you saying that you found the strict regime of your old high school quite hard. Do you think that's why you chose to work for yourself? And would you ever work would you ever work for other people?
So yeah, I think that is definitely one of the reasons that I always wanted my own business, because I always wanted to play by my own rules, which is I don't really follow rules. I'm not very good at that. I'm not diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure that I have ADHD. So I think that is a big thing for me. I don't like rules. I like to push boundaries. I'm very fast-paced, move, efficient. I don't like slow. So if I'm in a business in which things are running slowly, I can't cope. I'm like, come on, let's move. Let's get it done faster. Do it now. I like things done now. So I would struggle working for someone again. But as I get older and I sell my businesses and I choose to slow down, absolutely I would work for someone. But it would be, because I'm kind of wanting to slow down and I no longer want to be this fast-paced, efficient person. I just want to be, chilling, working in a clothes shop. That'd be fine for me when I'm, older, 60. I want to go, okay, I'm chilling now. I'm just going to go. I'm going to just do whatever someone asks me to do, and that's that. But right now, no, I could not. But eventually, yes, I will go back and work for someone.
I think it's always difficult. You were sort of saying, they're going and doing something where you chill. But for entrepreneurs, our idea of sort of chilling is we're going to a new environment. You think, I'll just go and do this, that, and the other. And then suddenly you go in and go, everything's wrong in here. We need to change this. I'm phoning the CEO. What are you doing with this company? All this. And before you know it, you've kind of sped back
it's very
up
hard.
Again.
Yeah, it's hard to take a step back. And, even for me now, when I meet other people, and they tell me this happened, I'm itching to change it. I'm but I could this is all you need to do and it'll be resolved. It's really difficult to not give unsolicited advice, basically.
I saw some other hands as well. Yeah, have you got a question? No?
What's the hardest thing about running a business?
What's the hardest thing? People screwing you over. It's happened to me so many times. So with my wine business, for an example, I had a wine agent who was like the middleman between me and the winery, because the wine comes from Italy. So the vineyard owner is Italian. I obviously don't speak Italian. So I had like a middleman that would assist me with the contracts, with the communication, with the ordering. We worked together for 3 to 4 years, really well, really amicably. And then all of a sudden he dropped off the earth, and he dropped off the earth with £60,000 of my money. So I lost 60 grand because I was trusting of a person that basically screwed me over in the end. So, and that's just one example. I've had multiple people over the years, over the nearly 10 years in business. I've had multiple people steal from me. I had a member of staff steal from me £10,000. I've had, people be fraudulent, people lie, people try and copy my business. There was these guys in Ireland who really wanted to replicate my business. And they came to me and we spoke, and we were going to do something together. But actually what they were just doing was getting all the information and the knowledge to run off and do it themselves. So I'd say that the most difficult has been the people that really, have gone against me, really. And you have to build a certain level of resilience if you are going to be in business, because you will have things like that happen to you, even if maybe not on such a big scale. I feel like people say to me, God, you've had a lot. And I have, but you'll always get something, even if it's on a smaller scale.
Yeah, it's a sad thing that obviously sort of happens even on a socially entrepreneurial level. You kind of, if you work in the charitable, social, educational sector, you think it's completely different to the commercial, almost that you're more wary of people in the commercial. But if anything, actually, I've found it's the other way around, which is really kind of surprising, that you kind of, even if you're working in an environment or a sector where it's about all helping and supporting other people, and you assume that's about helping and supporting one another to do that, that's not necessarily sort of the case, especially when the social, charitable, educational sort of sectors, there's only so much of a income there. It's not necessarily a growing or a free market like the commercial one. So sadly, if you are going into a social one, then you need to be sort of wary and resilient within that as well. You've got a question, sir?
Can I ask a quick question? So over your time in your business, how have you found that influencer market change? You talked a bit about technology, and I assume that's been kind of the same throughout, but obviously different depending on particularly now AI. But how have you found the influencers in general change? Because a lot of our students particularly would be interested in that marketplace.
Well, it's a lot more of a saturated market now. So when I first started working with influencers, you could pay an influencer, as an example, £1,000 to post about your business. They'll go away, they'll create the content, they'll come back, they'll post about it. Instantly, your website traffic, you can get 20,000, 30,000 people on the website. So back in the day, we used to crash websites because websites weren't built for that level of traffic. Now, you can't crash a website if you try. You can send 1 million people there and it's still not going to crash. But we would crash websites. Also, the return on investment. So, 30,000 people go to your website, 10% of them might buy. So you've got 3,000 customers there and then overnight. You've made 50 grand overnight and you've only spent £1,000. Now the market is saturated and the return on investment isn't the same as what it once was. You might spend 5 grand and you only get 10 back. So there is still a return on investment. It is still a lot more of a successful marketing route to take than maybe like having a billboard or, running an ad on TV, because no one's watching the ads anymore. So it might be more successful than that, but it's not remotely like it once was, when it could turn your business upside down overnight. It doesn't have that power anymore because it's so saturated, because there's so many influencers, because there's so many people fighting for the market. And so it's all about now how much of a cult following you have. So how invested, how obsessed your followers are in you. If you just have followers, a large following, but they're not really that bothered, then no one's going to buy because they don't really care. They're just like, oh, they might look at you because you're attractive or whatever. But if you've got followers invested and they care, they hang on your every word, they care about you as a person, and they care, like they're so into you, then that's a different story. You can still sell and you can still be a very successful influencer. But a lot of people now, you used to come off Love Island, you're instantly famous. It's not the same now. If you haven't got that relatability, then you just will not succeed and you'll crash out as an influencer.
I think what's really interesting the last sort of few years or so is that actually a lot of the influencers have realised the power that they've had. The fact that in the beginning they'd be, get £1,000 and then suddenly they've generated £30,000 worth of business for someone else. A lot of the top influencers are now actually using that following and actually becoming entrepreneurs and realizing and recognizing actually I'm sort of better off, just going down a different route, creating my own products, my own services and monetizing my own following, as opposed to, I'm not saying that they won't and they're not still happy to do that, but it seems kind of those who are really coming through at the moment, who are creating really big brands, that can even be worth billions. Yeah. A lot of those individuals are social media influencers, content creators turn sort of entrepreneurs. So it's interesting how the market's kind of sort of flipped in another
very
different
true.
ways.
A lot of my clients have their own businesses, and the thing is, they don't necessarily have the skill set to run the business, but because they've got the following and the sales power, they can just hire someone to run the business. So they can just say, okay, well, I'm not great at accountancy, or like the way I've had to become well-rounded, good at marketing, good at accountancy, good at this, because I've had to do it for myself because I didn't have the money or whatever. They don't necessarily need to go and learn all that. They just know we've got the pull, the influence, we can make the sale. So we'll just hire someone to run the business in the background and we'll become the face of the business. And that is more and more what's happening, because if they know they can make someone 30 grand overnight, why do they want to do that when they can just do it for themselves?
Yeah, we've got another question here.
What influencers have you worked with?
What influencers have I worked with? Oh, God, many. I'm trying to think who you would know at your age. It's a lot of like reality TV stars. So a lot of people from Geordie Shore, from Towie, from Made in Chelsea, from Love Island, a lot of them over the years. One of my clients now is a girl called Sophia Viraji. I don't know if you know her. She's got a phenomenal story. She really is a personality with purpose. We've got people who run podcasts. We've got TikTokers. We've got Ellie Miller, who you could know. She's a comedian on TikTok. She's really funny. People love her. She's got a lot of young followers. But I'm not sure if it's anyone that maybe your age would follow. Maybe not.
You've got a good variety there, a different...
Yeah, we have, yeah. It's all different.
Would you say that you getting screwed over in business, would you say that's because of your age or just people being trying to make money for themselves, not for you?
I think there's a mixture. I think probably like there is an element when I was younger of naivety, being a female. I've actually only ever been screwed over by men, never a woman, always men. And that's happened 3 or 4 times. Is that because maybe I'm a woman and they see me as an easy target? There is potential in that. But then also people are selfish, they want things for their own gain. The story I told you about the guy who stole for £60,000 off me, it actually turns out that he was going through cancer treatment that he couldn't afford and he'd stolen the money to pay for that. I'm not sure it makes it any better from my perspective, but it was kind of nice to know that it wasn't completely for nothing, because we have built a friendship over those 3 to 4 years. But I think it's a mixture. People just out for themselves, wanting to trample on anyone they can. And also maybe people thinking, oh, she's just a young girl, we can get away with it. Which, not really, because I am a fighter and I will fight to the death to get it back.
Cool, brilliant. Thanks ever so much for your questions. That was absolutely phenomenal. Some, really well done for that. So we have a couple of closing traditions on the Kids Interview Entrepreneurs podcast. Our first closing tradition is to Simon Squib you. So you've been talking a lot about purpose, which is really great within the podcast. So our first closing tradition is to ask you, what's your dream?
What's my dream?
Yeah.
It's changed, you know. My dream when I was younger was like, I'm going to be a billionaire. That's what I want. I just want loads of money, and then I'll just buy a yacht, and that'll be it. I'll be happy for life because I'll have a yacht and I'll sail the seas. That's not my dream anymore. My dream now is to have a calm mind, healthy, happy family, be around people that I love and I trust, and also like to have just a comfortable life. So enough money where I'm not worrying about like how I'm going to pay for things, but not enough money where I need a yacht. I don't need a yacht. I don't need a plane. I don't need any of that. I just need comfortable, happy life with a calm mind where I'm not anxiety ridden or stressed, or, you know, a slower paced life is the dream.
It's a nice dream. I don't know about sort of slow pace, being entrepreneurial and your brain's sort of working kind of and so like that. But I think that's a really nice dream and something that's definitely achievable. And actually you're probably living that at the moment in a lot of respects.
Yeah. I'm getting there, I'd say. Yeah,
that's great. Our second closing tradition is to Stephen Bartlett you. So we've got a couple of Diary of the CEO conversation cards. If you want to choose one of the packs and then select one of the questions, and then you can give whichever card you select to Gracie or Saskia. Yeah. Oh.
Right, so just choose one.
Yeah, so choose one and then pass that to Gracie or Saskia and to ask you a final question.
What is one aspect or feature of your life that causes you the most friction or discomfort, and how could you change or fix it?
Oh, deep. I think it's my workaholic nature causes me friction in my personal life, because it's like I can't take a holiday where I'm not on my phone or my laptop. I'll go on holiday, don't get me wrong, I actually go on holiday a lot, but I'm sat there on my phone, on my laptop still while I'm on holiday, which obviously my family members or, you know, anyone in my life will be like, can you get off your phone? Can you get off your laptop? But I'm just addicted to work. And I think that workaholic nature does cause me a bit of friction, and that is why I am actively working on that at the moment, to try and have a bit more of a work-life balance and a bit more of a calmer mind.
It's obviously sort of really good to have such a strong work ethic, because it's a higher likelihood that you are going to be successful because of that. But then equally, like, you've become really successful, and then it's difficult then to switch that
turn it off
because you know you've had to work and hit the ground running that hard in order to become successful. But then it's sort of this sort of tricky situation. But I think it's great that you've kind of recognized that, and then obviously you try to find ways now that you can go on holiday and maybe put your phone down or your laptop down for at least maybe 50% of the times now, and then sort of gradually sort of work to a point where that will be sort of less and less.
Absolutely.
So thanks for everyone's time and attention today. It's been a really great Kids Interview Entrepreneurs podcast. We've had absolutely fantastic questions from Year 9 at UTC, the studio in the Baltic Triangle. Thanks ever so much to our local entrepreneur, Kath Jones of Social Nation and Think Wine Group, for coming in today and answering the questions. Thanks to Gracie and Saskia for very eloquently asking the insightful questions as well. Finally, thanks again to Mr. Carey, the sector skills champion at the school, for the support of not only running this activity but other activities within the enterprise education in secondary schools program. Thank you to Jay as well for their help and support with producing the podcast. And finally, thanks to Paul Brett and Sir Peter Rigby for helping and supporting us to able to run all this. We look forward to seeing you in another podcast. Take care for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.